Welcome. Thanks for coming to practice with me. So today's practice, if you read the invitation, is put a spring in your step. Yeah. So we have these phrases in our language that are really very descriptive and useful. Yeah. If you've ever seen someone or just taken note of someone who seems to have a spring in their step, they're kind of light and lively and lithe. And you might think about what the other might be. Yeah. So before I go too much farther, I just want to say that next week, Monday, will not be a live practice. Marcia and I are going to be out of town. So I will be doing a recording and sending you the link that you can use for next week. And I'll get back to just briefly to spring in your step. Today's practice was, in that regard, was inspired by the research of Dr. Paul DeVita, D-E-V-I-T-A. And he did some really interesting research, and it is, of course, published in a journal, but also reported in the New York Times about 3 or 4 years ago. And the name of the article is Why Runners Get Slower with Age. So if you're interested, you could Google New York Times, Why Runners Get Slower with Age. And you might think, well, it's obvious. They're just older. But what the research found was pretty interesting, because metabolically, our VO2 max and other metabolic functions decline at a pretty small rate, 1 to 2%, 1 to 1.5% a year. Yeah, it isn't 2%. So that's not much, but there's a big drop off in older runners slowing down after they reach their 50s. And the primary finding of the function was that it has something to do with ankle mobility and lower leg and ankle strength and functional mobility. Let's just get started. Block is going to come in handy. I'm sure many of you have those handy. We'll be doing that wide-legged forward fold again, and the block is going to just help you reach the floor. So let's come up standing to begin our practice. And we'll start with that part of the Dasha Shalana cycle that is related to ankle mobility. So, pouring your weight into the right foot, left foot, toes come behind you onto the ground, and we'll just circle like you were drawing a circle on the ceiling with the back of your heel, that Achilles tendon area. You're going in both directions a few times, just freeing up not only ankle joints, but bringing mobility to knee and hip, maybe even joints of the toes, getting synovial fluid flowing, lubricating. That's probably enough on one side. We'll go to the other side. And it's just stepping back a bit and doing those circles so that when leg comes forward, top of the toes, toenails are on the ground. And when leg goes back, pads of the toes, toe prints are on the ground. I don't know about you, but there's a pretty significant difference, left side to right side, in my body. See what's true in your body. Maybe you notice things are not quite the same this side as they were the other side. So there's a bit of ankle mobility. Let's just come to standing, and with hands on hips, we'll add some ankle and arch and lower leg strength just by, on an inhale, lifting your heels and setting them back down. And up and down like that, slow, smooth, steady. And what you could do is maybe imagine that there's landing gear on either side of your wheel. Maybe some of you who have done a lot of flying, you notice that. A really good takeoff, landing gear under each side of the airplane. They leave the ground at the same time. When you come in for a landing, they touch the ground at the same time. See if you can do that same thing here with your heels. Heels, landing gear leaving the ground at the same time. Landing gear bringing you back down, touching the ground at the same time. Inside to outside. Yeah, a little different activity in muscles of the lower legs to do that. Let's add some arms to that. So on an inhale, arms up, heels up, taking off, exhale, coming in for a land. Couple more of those. Perhaps you've already noticed little fatigue in lower legs, maybe even arches. Last one, let's sweep all the way down, take this into a forward fold, exhale, all the way down. Bit of a lift, fingertips stay on the floor, all the way upside down. Inhale. Let's pause here and do one more full deep inhale between the shoulder blades to get shoulder blades and collarbones moving a bit. Full deep exhale and sweeping all the way up. Inhale, arms to the side. Let's just do a few sun salutations and we'll build a bit on that. So inhale, sweeping up. Exhale, fold. Bit of a lift, inhale. All the way upside down. Exhale. Inhale, sweeping up. And arms to the side. So let's build on that. Add the downward facing dog. Inhale, sweeping up. Exhale, fold. Bit of a lift. All the way upside down. Exhale. Hands and inhale, and downward facing dog. I'm pausing here for a moment in dog. So my knees are bent, my heels are off the floor. The reason for that is we're going to test our landing gear on the heels again. So lift your heels, heels lifting, knees bending a bit, and see if you can bring those heels back down. Now they won't touch the floor, but as if they were going to land on the floor at the same time. So accessing ankle mobility, strength. All right. Exhale, hands and knees. Stepping forward, forward, fold. Bit of a lift, inhale. All the way upside down, exhale. Sweeping up. One more salutations ahead for the floor. We'll do the dog again, and then we'll be down for a bit. So inhale, sweeping up. Exhale, folding. Bit of a lift. All the way upside down. Inhale, hands and knees, and exhale, downward facing dog. Couple heel lifts here. And then just coming to hands and knees. And coming seated. So coming seated, coming onto your back with knees bent and soles of the feet on the floor. And then taking that left leg, extending it out along the floor and bringing that right leg up, using your hands to support that right thigh so it stays more or less perpendicular, straight up and down. And then reaching your toes for your knee, kind of extending out through your heel. And on an inhale, taking that foot up towards the ceiling. And then pointing your toes, toes pointing, bringing the foot on down. So just like that. Let's inhale up, heel leading the way. Exhale down, toes pointing, toes leading the way. Couple more of those. I'm doing this in a way that we've done before, using that musical analogy, the crescendo. Each time foot is down, toes are pointed. Keeping toes pointed now. Toes lead the way up. Crescendo means keeping the effort, the volume turned up all the way through the movement, maybe even increasing it a bit as you get to the end of the movement. Are you reaching? Then flexing, then coming down. Last one. Pointing, toes lead the way up, and then circle on the ceiling with the big toe. And not a really big circle, about the size of the rim of your coffee cup. Going in both directions. Best you can, making that circle as round as possible. Going slow over those spots that are kind of flat, just getting the rust off. Sound effects are optional. All right, bringing the leg end down. Same thing on the other side. Bringing that leg up, loose hold to support perpendicular thigh. Extending through your heel, heel leads the way up. Pointing your toes, toes lead the way down. We'll only do about 4 of these with heel leading the way up. And then we'll do 4 with toes leading the way up. And we'll do the circles. So this time when foot comes down, toes pointed, toes lead the way back up, toes pointing towards the ceiling. And now it's reaching through your heel. Heel leads the way down. Best you can using that crescendo analogy, keeping the ankle flexion, the lower leg engagement, all the way through the movement. And last one, toes reaching up for the ceiling and then doing the circle. Circle in both directions, and not the biggest circle. Reason for that is keeping the toes pointed, smaller circle engages lower leg muscles in a particular way. Perhaps you've already noticed that. And then bringing that leg on down. Drawing knees in. Knees bent, feet on the floor. And then bringing knees up so that knees are over hips. Bringing arms up so that elbows are over shoulders. Arms bent, knees bent, elbows bent, I should say, knees bent. And then we're going to do something that is the second element of putting a spring in your step. And that's called contralateral movement. So right arm reaching up for the ceiling, left foot reaching up for the ceiling, and bringing them back down. Going to the other side. So it's opposite arm, opposite leg, going up and down at the same time. Contralateral movement. When you're walking, running, even when you're, surprisingly enough, swimming, especially freestyle swimming, stabilizes your spine, keeps spine from rotating, torquing. All right, let's take both hands and feet up towards the ceiling. And just a couple of these, reaching left arm out to the side, right leg out to the side. Coming out and bringing them back in. So working on strengthening that midline stability. And last one on this side. And then bringing arms and legs up, down. Rolling to one side. coming up on hands and knees. And we'll revisit downward facing dog on our way up. So heading back, knees bent, heels off the floor a bit. Good old downward facing dog. Now then, exhale, hands and knees. Inhale, stepping forward, forward, full. Bit of a lift, inhale. All the way upside down, exhale. And sweeping up. All right. Let's take a wide stride. I'm going to do this sideways this time, with toes slightly pointed out. And yeah, you guessed it. This quality of life pose, this squatting down pose. Reason I'm sideways this time is so that you can more clearly see that rather than tipping my torso forward to come down, or even bending knees to come down, first thing I do is take my hips behind me. Hips coming back allows knees to bend, ankles to bend. Of course, hips to flex. And inhale, come up. So up and down a few times like that. More directly accessing hip joints, getting them lubricated, warmed up. And then no extra charge. Knees and ankles, they get a little bit more fluid as well. Next time you're in that down position, pause there. And then in order to strengthen arches of the feet, lower legs, how about lifting the heel of your right foot as if you were taking off in an airplane, landing gear both sides lifting, coming up. And then on the right side, landing gear lifting, both sides of the heel coming up. Yeah, you might have guessed it. Got to bring this airplane in for a landing, don't we? So best you can, slow, smooth, steady, bringing those heels down as if the landing gear were going to touch both the edges, sides of the heel at the same time. Keeping those heels light as you inhale, come on. We'll do an up, down in silence so you can concentrate on landing gear weight equal on both sides of the heel and heel just a little bit lighter than forefoot. Let's give it a try. Exhale. Coming back up, inhale. All right. Stepping your feet together. We'll take that same movement into chair pose. So let's start with hands on hips. Once again, rather than taking my torso forward or bending my knees, first thing I'm going to do is take my hips back. Hips coming back invites knees and ankles to flex. Inhale, reaching arms forward. Exhale, up overhead. Inhale, coming all the way up. Arms to the side. One more of those. Exhale, hips come back. Knees, ankles bend. When we're here, let's see if we can practice those takeoffs and landings, landing gear in the heel, leaving the ground at the same time, and touching back down at the same time. And then it's inhale, arms forward. Exhale, arms overhead. Inhale, arms to the side. Let's add the chair twist. So it's exhale, hips, knees, ankles. And then it's right hand to left knee, left hand comes behind. Yeah, opening, turning, twisting. And then exhale, coming back forward. Inhale, reaching. Exhale, lifting. Inhale, coming. Going to the other side. Hips, knees, ankles. Left hand to right knee, right hand comes behind. Just a couple breaths here. First twist, mild twist. Exhale, coming on forward. Inhale, reaching. Exhale, lifting. Inhale, coming all the way up. And arms to the side. So here's where block is going to come in handy for that wide-legged forward fold. So placing the block in front of you, taking a wide stride again, but this time instead of toes pointed out, toes more or less pointed straight forward. And just like we've done already in this practice, rather than starting this forward fold by bringing your head forward, how about softening your knees such that first thing that happens is hips come back. Hips coming back allows torso to fold. Staying here for a moment, looking down at your feet. Perhaps you can bring your hands to the floor or to that block. So you can see your feet, your arches pretty clearly. It would be a good time to practice those takeoffs and landings. So lifting your heels as if they were landing gear, airplane landing gear, leaving the runway at the same time. Now the hard part, bringing those heels down. Landing gear, yep. Outside, inside, good landing. One more of those. All right. Let's add the twist here. So left hand stays on the block, right hand comes to your hip. And then turning to the right, taking that right arm up towards the ceiling. Couple breaths. And then we'll come all the way back down. Both hands on the block, twisting to the other side, starting with your hand on your hip. And then turning, twisting to the left arm coming up. Maybe a peek up at the ceiling, at that left hand reaching up. Exhale, coming up down. And returning hands to hips. And inhale, coming back up, up. Stepping your feet together. All right, done with the block for now. Setting the block aside. So remember a few moments ago, we were on the floor and we did that. Opposite arm, opposite leg. Bending, I call that contralateral movement. Contralateral movement is one of the key elements in putting a spring in your step and optimal walking gait. And if we had a lot of time, we'd do some walking around and experiment with no contralateral movement, just hands stiff by your sides and see what happened. But we'll skip that today and leave that exploration to you on your own. And we'll do something in that contralateral context that doesn't have all that much to do with legs, got more to do with arms. So in that contralateral movement, arms free to move forward, legs free to move forward. That's important. Equally, if not more important, is arms free to move forward and back, legs free to move forward and back. Let's work on that. Especially strengthen the upper back, that's going to allow more freedom of movement in the arm free to move not only forward, but free to move back. So starting with that goalpost position. Yep. And then bringing elbows together first, Bringing arms around, elbows together in front, and then elbows moving away from each other first. So it's kind of like elbows meet, palms meet, elbows leave, palms leave. So far when we've come forward, palms of the hands have been facing each other. This time when you're in that goalpost position, now palms are facing pretty much forward. See if you can turn those palms so that first thumbs face back behind you, and then part of the palm faces behind you, as if little finger were pointing towards each other. And now bringing those arms together, elbows together first, and elbows coming apart. Perhaps you've noticed how much more this requires from upper back muscles, muscles surrounding the shoulder blades, supporting the arms. All right. Letting that trail off. We'll head for the floor by way of a partial sun salutation. Inhale, sweeping up, exhale, folding. We'll come right down to kneeling. Just pausing for a moment here in kneeling. We're going to do that same arm movement that we did a moment ago, and that's elbows coming together, bringing hands together, elbows coming apart. So we're going to do something very similar on the floor to strengthen upper back muscles. And of course, when we're there, hands are going to start on the floor. We're going to bring elbows wide and then swing them around and lower ourselves down. So it looks like this. Elbows starting wide, swinging around, elbows coming together, and then we're going to lower ourselves. Let's give it a try. So coming to hands and knees, and hands forward of shoulders quite a bit, so that when elbows bend, they're going to wind up under your shoulders. And starting with elbows wide, elbows pointing out to the side, and then swinging those elbows around, bringing them down towards the floor, suspending just off the floor. Elbows coming together, reaching together. Inhale, coming back up. Couple of those. Elbows swinging around to come together. Of course, they don't come all the way together. They're just coming towards each other. Next time your elbows are suspended off the floor, pausing there for just a moment. Maybe if upper back allows, bringing your weight forward just a little bit so there's more weight over those hands and forearms, and then bringing your elbows down to the floor, curling your toes under, bringing hips up and back. Yep. Elbow dog. Primary reason we're here is to build strength in the upper back. Upper back supporting arms so that arms are free to move not only in front of you, but behind you as well. All right, coming down to hands and knees. And we'll head right away without moving hands at all to downward facing dog. Pose right here. Maybe a bit of a heel lift and lowering, just for that added benefit in the lower leg. Coming that down to hands and knees. We're going to head for the floor in that prone position. So coming forward, hips coming forward, aligning these hips, shoulders and ears, and then just lowering yourself on down, all the way down. Bringing hands back by your rib cage such that forearm is more or less perpendicular. And taking your nose towards the floor, just off the floor. We're headed for kind of a baby cobra, bit of a lift, and locust pose, but in a way that benefits upper back muscles. So let's first rotate your legs so that heels come together. And abdominal muscles, hamstring muscles help to support the pose. And then drawing back on the heel of your hand, lifting torso, neck, and head just a bit, looking forward, coming back down. So now, in order to get a little bit more direct activity, engagement of upper back muscles, see if you can widen your shoulders, widening across the collarbone, at the same time widening between your shoulder blades, kind of like taking your elbows away from each other. And then bringing a little bit of weight into the palm of each hand. Not a lot, maybe 2 or 3 pounds, hands pushing into the floor. Widening across the chest, front of the chest, and upper back as well. Now lifting those hands off the floor, keeping shoulders as they are, where they are. Taking your hands behind you towards your feet, palms facing the ceiling. With shoulders wide. Then on an inhale, lifting torso, neck, and head. And perhaps lifting those straight legs or just unweighting them a bit. Locust pose. Let's take those wide shoulders, arms, and palms that face the ceiling. Take the palms up towards the ceiling, just a bit. Lifting, 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 arms moving into that space above you. All right, let's come on down. Let everything release, relax. Maybe stacking palm upon palm and resting your forehead. A little bit of release for the lower back. And then coming to hands and knees. And stepping forward, forward, fold. All the way upside down, exhale. Sweeping up, inhale. Arms to the side. All right, so that was by way of opening the chest, strengthening the upper back muscles. We'll be taking just a moment here and standing to see what, if any, changes maybe have occurred in that feeling of openness in the chest. Yeah, so that was by way of facilitating arms free to move forward and back. We'll do something now with legs, hip flexors to facilitate legs free to move back. So pouring your weight into the right foot, stepping back with the left foot, stepping back just so that both feet are comfortably on the floor. And then from the back foot, left foot, pushing down through your toes in order to bend the front knee, lunging forward, and then pulling back through the heel of your back foot to straighten the front leg. So forward and back like that, just a couple times. From that back foot, front leg just coming along for the ride. All right. This time when front knee bends, back heel lifted, pausing there and taking your front of your hips crest, and lifting them up towards the ceiling. And then out of those lifted hips, descending your back heel down towards the floor. Inhale, arms straight forward. Exhale, arms up overhead. And taking your gaze up just a bit. So activating, strengthening, mobilizing that back foot when we were pushing off with the back foot. To bring some strength, stability to the front leg, right leg. First transition is hands to heart, inclining your torso forward, and then pouring your weight into that front foot, right foot, strengthening, stabilizing, bringing the other foot up. All right. So rather than going to the other side right away, we're going to head for the floor. Inhale, sweeping up. Exhale, forward. Bit of a lift, inhale. Hands and knees, exhale. And downward facing dog. So if you remember, last time we were standing, we had a foot back, it was that left foot. So keeping that left foot back where it is, we're going to come to hands and knees and bring the other foot, right foot forward, same foot that was forward when we were standing. And then straightening the back leg, coming into that runner's lunge. Bringing forearms to thigh, and then coming all the way up. Straightening the front leg. Back leg is pretty far back, so heel is off the floor. Bending and straightening that front knee just a couple times. Next time, front knee is bent. Inhale, arms straight forward. Exhale, arms up overhead. And taking your gaze up just a bit. All right, feeling that little bit of a pull, little bit of a stretch in the front of your left hip. Exhale, sweeping all the way down. Coming to hands and knees, and back to downward facing dog. Yeah. Checking in left side, right side. Coming back to hands and knees. Stepping forward, forward, hold. Complete exhale. Sweeping up, inhale. So maybe you notice I've got a chair handy here. Maybe stepping so that you're near a piece of furniture or a chair, just in case you need to reach out and touch it. I'm going to experiment here and see about leg free to move back behind you. So we just did a whole bunch of stuff that lengthened the hip flexors front of that left leg. So let's pour our weight into the right leg and just swing that left leg back and forth a few times, noticing how freely it moves. And then go on to the other side. Let's test the other leg. See how freely that leg moves. Yeah, other leg. I don't know about you, but for me, not quite as free to move back behind me. Let's do that same sequence on the other side, and then we'll see if it's making a difference. Inhale, sweep up. Exhale, arms up. You know what? I skipped a step, didn't I? We do that milder version first. So it would be stepping back with your right foot. And then from the ankle of that back foot, right foot, propel yourself forward. From the ankle of the back foot, bring yourself back up. So there's that ankle mobility. And some activity, some strengthening, toning of the muscles in the lower leg. Next time, front knee is bent, pausing there, lifting front of the hips, extending the back foot, the heel down to the floor, reaching forward, reaching up, gazing up. Just a couple breaths. Milder version of that high lunge, where we're headed in just a minute. All right, hands to heart. And now, added benefit for no extra charge, pouring your weight into that front foot to strengthen, stabilize. Bring the back foot up. All right, now it's time to head for the floor. Inhale, sweep it up. Exhale, fold. Come into hands and knees and downward facing dog. So last time we had the left foot back. This time we're going to leave the right foot back. So come into hands and knees. Left foot comes up between your hands. So same leg arrangement that we did in standing just a moment ago. And then coming up, coming up, coming up. Straightening both legs, and we'll just bend and straighten one time. Bending and straightening. Next time you're in that bend leg position, pause there. And then best you can, taking the front of your pelvis and tipping it up towards the ceiling. Inhale, arms forward. Exhale, arms overhead. Gazing up just a bit. No need to overdo it. Let's sweep down all the way down to the floor. Hands and knees downward facing dog. Couple breaths here. Coming back to hands and knees. Stepping forward, forward, forward. Complete exhale. Sweeping up, inhale. Arms to the side. All right. So let's test those legs. See if both legs are now more or less free to move, not only forward, but back as well. Maybe notice a difference. Maybe not so much. Yeah. So having a little bit of a issue with my balance here, so I'm not afraid to reach. There we go. Reach out and just swinging those legs. So that would be the leg part of the contralateral movement. Let's take some of these things we've done already and bring them into some traditional yoga poses. So how about side angle pose? And we'll head there by taking that right arm and swinging it. Swinging it back behind you, swinging it up to the sky. Just a free pendulum momentum swing. The next time that arm is up towards the ceiling, pausing there, reaching up through the little finger side of your hand. On an exhale, bending over, reaching to the other side just a bit, coming back up, and bringing that arm on down. So in side angle pose, we're going to do that same arm movement we just did. Taking a wide stride. Right toes turn in, left toes turn out. Exhale, bending the front knee. Next exhale, tipping at your hips, but not all that far. How about just hand to knee this time? Not the biggest tip we've ever done. And then that other arm, right arm, free arm. Let's start by taking it behind you, palm facing away from you, like we did in that swinging motion a moment ago. And then swing it forward, reaching it overhead, just like we did when we were standing. And now turning your gaze, taking a peek at the ceiling. Exhale, let's sweep that arm on down. Inhale, come on up. Go to the other side. So it's left toes turn in, right toes turn out. On an exhale, bending the front knee. And inhale, straightening. So the components we've worked on already, ankle mobility, pretty much evident in that front leg, right leg, ankle for sure is flexing. But what about that back foot? Remember, were doing the airplane, the landing gear. How about that back foot? The outside of the heel of the back foot, it kind of likes to lift off the ground when the front knee bends. See if you can keep that outside of the, there you go, outside of the back foot, back heel outside, landing gear even on the ground, tipping at your hips, hand to knee, arms reaching back and then swooping forward. Just a couple breaths here. Maybe turning your head a peek at the ceiling. Remember that back foot outside edge of the heel, inside edge of the heel as well. Both edges of the heel, sides of the heel, have landing gear on them, keeping them equally on the floor. All right, let's sweep that arm on down and come back up. Step in your feet together. And we'll head for the floor, and then we'll be on the floor pretty much for the rest of the practice. So inhale, sweeping up. Exhale, folding. Coming right away to hands and knees. Hands and knees. And standing on your knees. Remember, we worked on freeing, opening front of the hips as a way to give a little bit more freedom of movement, leg free to move behind you. We'll do a little bit more of that right here. So hands on your hamstrings, top of the feet, shins pushing down into the floor. And then rather than bringing your hips forward, just bringing your breastbone, your sternum up towards the ceiling, gazing up a bit. Bit of a gaze up towards the ceiling. All right. Exhale, coming back on down. So let's do something that may free things up in front even more, allow even more freedom of leg to swing back behind you. And that would be this right here. Planting your collarbones and those two little bony parts that kind of almost meet in the middle. I'm going to take my left hand, my thumb, and lay it on the top of that collarbone right next to on the top of the opposite collarbone, right collarbone. So it's left thumb, right collarbone. Dropping my chin so that I can anchor my thumb in behind on top of that collarbone. And then lifting my chin, working my jaw. Releasing platysmal muscles. Dropping your chin. Moving that thumb out towards your shoulder a little bit farther, another inch or so. Chin dropping so you can anchor that thumb in on top of, even a little behind that collarbone, then lifting your chin, working your jaw. Dropping your chin, taking that thumb all the way a little bit farther out so that almost all your thumb, if not all your thumb, is resting in behind on top of the collarbone, and then lifting your chin, working your jaw, and turning to look away from thumb and hand. All right, let's do the same thing on the other side. You gotta know where we're headed, you know, in the routine. So we start with chin drop. Thumb of the right hand is going to anchor in over kind of the inside third, the breastbone side third of that collarbone. Lifting your chin, working your jaw. Dropping your chin, moving thumb and hand a little bit more towards your shoulder. And lifting, working your jaw. And last one, anchoring with chin down, lifting chin, working your jaw, and turning to look away from that right hand. All right. Let's see if that made any difference at all in our modified camel pose, 21st century camel pose. Top of the feet moving down, hands on your hamstrings. When you feel hamstrings engage, keeping hips over knees, lifting breastbone and chin engaged. See, what if any difference has occurred? All right, let's release and come on down. Let's just come onto your back for a moment. There was a fair amount of back bending, spinal extension. So with hands on knees, just on an exhale, drawing your knees into your chest. Inhale, letting them go back out. Bit of a release for lower back. And then bringing both feet to the floor, crossing your right ankle over your left thigh. And now this right knee is going to try to wing out to the side, pull away from my chest. But the left hand is going to hold it back. So it's left knee moving away, left hand holding it back, and then drawing that foot on the floor, leg in. So with left knee trying to move away, left hand holding it back, right thigh pulling things in a bit. Perhaps feeling a little bit of a tug in deep hip muscles. And we'll bring everything down. Go right away to the other side. So you can see that better if I turn just a bit here. Now it's right leg, ankle over left thigh, and this right knee is going to try to move out away from me. Right hand is going to give it some resistance, hold it back. So with leg trying to move away, tug of war, hand trying to hold it back, bringing this other leg up. Just finding that place where deep hip muscle may feel a little bit of a tug. Perhaps we can explore that a little bit more by pointing and flexing the ankle of that crossed over leg, crossed over foot. Maybe finding a little bit more activity, a little bit more sensation in the deep hip muscle. All right, let's bring both feet down and draw your knees into your chest. And then rolling over onto your left side as if you were gonna sleep on your left side with knees tucked up on your shoulder. The first element here is to extend that upper leg, right leg out away from you, just like we did before. Right leg is going to try to move away, in this case, move up towards the ceiling. Left hand is going to be on the thigh, holding it down. So with that little bit of tug of war going on in your deep hip, opening your torso back towards the ceiling. And here again, you can experiment with pointing and flexing the foot of that straightened out leg, reaching for the ceiling, moving for the ceiling leg that's being resisted by the opposite hand trying to hold it down. Free enough tissues. All right, first transition is bringing that leg back in, foot back in, rolling off. Oh, we'll go same position on the other side. Starting with ease drawing in, rolling up onto your shoulder, extending that upper leg, straightening it out, and then the opposite hand holding that thigh down. Thigh wants to reach for the ceiling. Hand wants to give it some resistance. Opening your torso towards the ceiling. Pointing and flexing your foot. Upper foot, straight leg foot. Accessing deep hip muscles. Couple more breaths here. Complete exhale. Full deep inhale. And on an exhale, bringing that upper leg back in, roll it over onto your side. And then just coming onto your back. We'll just spend a few moments here in resting pose, but not more than a minute or so. That was a lot of guidance, a lot of instruction. Letting all of that slip away. No need to do anything, think about anything special. Just resting. And drawing your next inhale a little deeper. Slowly, gradually opening your eyes if they were closed. And if these are all right where it's bent, first transition is bending your knees and then rolling to one side and coming seated. Yeah. So before we do our final close, just gonna review a couple of things. I know there are some of you out there who are headed for some adventures in hiking, and just wanted to suggest a couple of things, review a couple of things that we did in today's practice that will help pre-hike, pre-walk, pre-run, even pre-swim. Yeah, kind of preamble. Coming up onto your feet, let's just review for a moment the contralateral movement. And the part that for almost everybody, myself included, that is deficient in the contralateral movement is the arm swing. So just before you go for your walk, your hike, your run, just swinging your arm, letting it freely swing, pendulum swing, getting those neuromuscular connections, waking them up so that when you walk, arms are free to swing. And maybe the other side as well, just a few swings. Yeah, it probably wouldn't hurt. By way of waking up neuromuscular connections in the legs, just supporting yourself, letting the legs swing a few times. So contralateral movement keeps the spine stable, steady, midline steady. A few swings on that side. So that's one thing you could do. Contralateral movement, preamble to your activity. Another thing you could do is that ankle mobility, stepping back, pushing off from the toes of the back foot, reaching the heel to the floor. Yeah, back and forward a few times. And it doesn't take a lot. Again, we're not intending to try to do this while you're walking, while you're doing your activity. We're just waking up the neuromuscular connections. A few times on one side, a few times on the other side. Yeah. So that's pretty much it. Not a lot to do, and not doing it with the intention that, boy, I'm going to do this while I'm walking, while I'm hiking, while I'm running, because that's the surest way to suck all of the joy out of those activities. So one last thing, post-activity, post-hike, post-run, is that wide stride with toes pointed out. Letting your hips come back, squatting down, yeah. Moving joints in a little bit of a different plane. Just making sure that any stiffness, soreness, accumulated movement patterns, tendencies, kind of get flushed out of the system. All right, stepping together, bringing hands to heart. Namaste. Thank you for practicing with me.